What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Mercedes Masterclass, this time episode 3. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different than what I did last time. We are actually going to be talking about men's low porosity hair care. So I thought this would be an interesting episode for today because it's been relevant in my life, at least, because for a long time my hair was kind of in not as good condition as it could have been, and I didn't quite know a lot about hair care. And I think that's the thing for a lot of guys, where they don't necessarily know what type of hair they have or necessarily how to maintain it to the best of their abilities. For me specifically, at one point I had longer hair, and the issues that come about when you really damage your hair is way more prevalent and visible when you have longer hair. So in that period of my life, that's when I learned a little bit more about this, and ever since I actually took the time to research, I was able to make my hair a lot healthier. Even though I don't have the longest hair right now, still, it's really applicable because you can get some like really luscious flows going and stuff like that. So this is something I would like to talk through today in this episode. Before we go into the hair care routine that I would like to talk about in today's episode, I think it would actually be really important to kind of define what low porosity hair actually is. So all that low porosity hair really means is that your hair, as a baseline kind of way of existing, always has the cuticles closed. So cuticles closed versus cuticles open. What it basically means is that when we look right here, we can see we have open cuticles and closed cuticles. In this case, closed cuticles is more representative of low porosity hair. The cuticle is kind of these little structures on the hair itself that can open up so they can kind of like flower out, flake out a little bit, quite literally opening up the structure of hair for moisture to get in. So it can kind of be thought of like a cuticle. It's almost like a shield. And this is the shield for your hair, which is able to both block particles from coming in, and it also can actually keep particles inside the hair. So what does low porosity hair actually mean? In this case, the cuticles are closed. Therefore, it is harder for moisture and oils and other chemicals to get inside the hair strand, but is also pretty easy for it to keep its moisture inside. That's because low porosity hair oftentimes struggles to get the cuticles open. And that's practically all that low porosity hair is. And that's all that we need to know when we tackle how to properly maintain it. I think it's also worth mentioning that low porosity hair, in my opinion, once you get your routine locked in, I believe it is actually I think it is the set and forget hair type. And by that I mean, once you moisturize it, once you really make sure that you close a cuticle and you get enough moisture inside, it is going to keep the moisture. So therefore, you don't really have to worry about humid days where your hair gets all weighed down or oily and such. Actually, low porosity hair, when you really get your routine right, is least prone to get oily. And that makes it where the longevity of your hairstyle, in between washes, is actually kind of extended compared to other hair types, which is a good benefit of low porosity hair once you get your routine locked in. For the purpose of education, I think it is also important to kind of teach you guys how to know whether you do indeed have low porosity hair. And there are some more scientific kind of little tests you can do. And what I'm referring to is actually the glass of water test. I'm sure you've heard about it before, but just to summarize, when you have low porosity hair, again with the cuticle closed like we see here, if you place it on top of water, anywhere between 5 to 10 minutes, it should still stay on top of the water and not sink down. So this would be an example of low porosity hair, this glass right here. However, if we have something that has higher porosity hair, we see that the hair is actually going to sink inside. And that is because when the cuticle is open, it is more likely to get moisture inside of the hair strand, and therefore it is actually going to just increase the density of the hair strand and make it sink into the water. So the reason why we don't have it sink in the closed hair strand with low porosity hair is that the hair is light enough as to where it just stays right on top due to surface tension, and the density is not high enough of the hair strand to actually kind of like break surface tension and sink below. So that is one way to figure out if you have low porosity hair. However, the way that I actually figured it out for myself was a little bit more trial and error and looking at like phenotypic observations. And all I mean by that is that I was washing my hair in different ways with kind of like a different combination of products, and I was seeing what my hair was doing. And in conjunction with this test, I was actually able to figure out that I personally do have closed hair, or I mean low porosity hair with the closed follicle. So let's really quickly run through how to kind of like test your hair in the shower with different products like I did, and see what hair type you have, or rather confirm that you do or do not have low porosity hair. So from what I can remember, the way I figured out my low porosity hair was indeed low porosity hair was through some trial and error. So first, I actually started off with using a strong hydrating shampoo plus conditioner, and I often saw that that led to weighed down hair, which was oftentimes prone to grease. And by that I mean I would get out of the shower, dry my hair, and my hair looked really, really weighed down, kind of like ready to be greasy, if that makes sense. And of course, soon after, in like a day or a day and a half, it would get greasy like that. And after that, I did try to remedy that with clarifying shampoo. I should have said that I was using strong hydrating shampoo and clarifying shampoo, kind of like alternating. But when I did that, I saw that my hair was actually getting pretty dead and pretty crunchy. And that's kind of when it clicked for me what was happening. So let me break it down real quick. Whenever we talk about my first kind of little way of treating my hair here with the strong hydrating shampoo and conditioner, the reason it was getting so weighed down and prone to grease in the context of my low porosity hair was because a shampoo, what it does is it's meant to actually open your cuticle chemically. And if it's a hydrating shampoo, it's meant to kind of put hydration into your hair. So we're really going to start filling up the hair already. When we use a conditioner, oftentimes conditioners also are meant to moisturize. However, conditioners are often meant to take our chemically opened cuticle, and it's actually going to chemically close it. And this is kind of just like hair care 101, but we have to realize that if you're using a strong hydrating shampoo, shower on shower on shower on shower, consecutively, it's actually going to build up so much hydration in your hair that your hair is just naturally going to be weighed down. It's going to look a little bit different. It's not going to be optimal. Basically, kind of think about it as if we have the hair being full. So whenever you actually start to sweat and stuff like that, the sweat is not necessarily going to be able to be absorbed into your hair. For one reason, because obviously we have low porosity hair, it's less likely to absorb. But for a second reason, the hair strands are already so hydrated, they can't actually absorb any more moisture. So all the sweat is just going to stay on your scalp, and it's actually going to kind of like build up on your hair, run down your hair, and that's going to make it look greasy. And what's more, it's going to make it look more weighed down. However, when we move over to the clarifying shampoo and strong hydrating shampoo alternating plus conditioner, the reason this was killing my hair was because even though I was hydrating my hair with the shampoo, the next time I would shower with the clarifying shampoo, I would actually be stripping all the moisture out of my hair with it. So I would never actually give my hair enough time to build up moisture within the strand of the hair before my next shower which was actually just stripping all of the moisture out of the hair and really like deep cleaning the hair. If you guys don't know, clarifying shampoo, that's actually what it does. It's meant to kind of get a really deep clean, really open up your cuticles and take away like all of the chemicals inside, all of the product, and oftentimes you lose moisture with that as well. So I actually was basically draining my hair of all the moisture when I was alternating between the clarifying shampoo and the hydrating shampoo. And the conditioner was not enough to actually like give my hair enough moisture, and that's why it was ending up dead and crunchy and pretty weightless. And that is basically when I figured out that my hair was low porosity. All right, guys, now let's do a deeper dive into what you should do, and subsequently what helped me get my hair from really dead to really healthy as quickly as possible. The first thing I would actually recommend is looking into a really or like a name balanced shampoo. And by that I mean it's gonna say kind of like balanced on the bottle. You want something that is not necessarily going to clarify your hair, and you don't want something that's going to overhydrate your hair. The reason we want this is because your shampoo is basically just going to open the cuticle and help clean out all the product and all the oil and everything inside your hair. That can work to like the advantage or the disadvantage of low porosity hair, just because the cuticle is always closed on low porosity hair. It has a hard time getting moisture and it has a hard time losing moisture. We want something that's going to do the job of opening up the cuticle, because all shampoos, that's what they do, chemically open the cuticle. We want something to open the cuticle so that it can clean out enough oil and enough product so that we can actually get it like top, like so to speak, top off the hydration using our conditioner. When we use our conditioner, once again, the purpose of the conditioner is to go from open cuticle to closed cuticle while putting some moisture inside. So the product that I chose to use for my own hair care is the Rosemary Mint Blend Strengthening Conditioner. This is from Mielle. The company, I'll spell it out, Mielle. I think that's how you pronounce it. And I use both their washout and leave-in conditioner. And I actually found that this is a really good middle of the road option for low porosity hair, because it is actually marketed as a low porosity hair kind of like lineup of products. So I like that. And when you look for low porosity hair products, what you want to look for are practically the lightest options possible. That's because our hair obviously has a hard time absorbing moisture, and we want something as light as possible so that we don't weigh down the hair. Use it the right way, it's not going to leave your hair feeling overly greasy. So I think the next thing to talk about is how to actually use these products effectively. The main idea when we're talking about hair care and how to use your products, in my opinion, is actually washing on your hair's own timeline. I think that there's a lot of advice out there that talks about sticking to like a certain number of days. Maybe you use your shampoo X number of times in a week. I think it's actually all up to your lifestyle and how your hair moves and grows with you. So that being said, I would recommend that you basically spend enough time in between your shampoos that you get at least one co-wash in. I think this helps reduce the frequency that you're actually stripping your hair of oils and product and moisture, but it also gives you enough kind of leeway and time to build up moisture and let your hair kind of like just exist with product in it. And it's a nice middle ground as to where you're not going through shampoo super fast and you're not necessarily going through your leave-in very fast, but you are pretty consistently going to be using your conditioner. I would like to kind of emphasize one more thing. When you use your shampoo, you are going to use your washout conditioner and your leave-in conditioner along with it. That's really important, and we're going to contrast this to how we co-wash. To those of you who don't know, co-washing is only basically washing your hair. So you're gonna get it wet and you're gonna put your washout conditioner in your hair, leave it in there and then wash it out. That's a co-wash, conditioner wash. What that does, it kind of just like re-ups your hair without actually stripping any of the existing moisture out of it. And it's gonna help close the cuticle, put in some extra moisture, and kind of just like lock it in for whatever extra day or two you may need before shampooing. And this is a good strategy for the longevity of your shampoo and for keeping moisture in your hair. But one thing to notice, when we co-wash, we're not going to use a leave-in. Using a leave-in after co-washing is going to make your hair very, very oversaturated. I think that's the best way to describe it, because we're actually going to be doing what I did before and really weighing down the hair with product when it can't really absorb anymore. So the hair is going to be saturated. It's going to allow sweat to build up on your scalp. It's going to let sweat kind of like just build up on the outside of your hair strands, and it's going to make it look really weighed down and really greasy. And that's actually not what we want. That's going to make your hair look, bad. But if you follow the strategy that I told you about, it's going to be looking pretty sleek, not greasy, but flowy. You're going to get some of that natural curl back in your hair. It's going to be looking really like it should. It's going to be looking healthy. And that is exactly what we want. All right, guys, let's summarize today's lesson. So, step 1, you're going to want to get a balanced shampoo. We're going to want this because it's not too strong, but it's not too weak of a shampoo. And that's going to combine well with a lightweight conditioner. We really want a lightweight conditioner specifically because low porosity hair is very, very kind of susceptible to being weighed down. So we don't want that. In terms of timelining your washes and your hair care, I would say it's typical for men who are active to wash 1 to 2 times per week with shampoo, but your own schedule works just as well. I think that co-washing one time in between shampoos is also a really good strategy for not only making the most of the moisture in your hair, but making the most of your shampoo as well. You can kind of like extend the life of your bottle, if that makes sense. One thing to note, whenever we co-wash, no leave-in conditioner. This is going to make it way too saturated with product, and it's actually going to make your hair more susceptible to grease and being weighed down. As a bonus, I did throw in that I've noticed my hair really likes low-speed blow drying or air drying, or a combination thereof. What this really helps with is just kind of not frying your hair. Obviously, when we kind of like cook our hair on high speed with a blow dryer, yeah, it's going to make it frizzy, and that's because some of the kind of like moisture has actually evaporated out of our hair. So low speed is best because we can keep the moisture inside of the hair and not necessarily like evaporate all of the moisture out of our hair. And on the same token, that's why air drying is really good, because we can maximize the moisture that we keep in our hair. All right, guys, well, that was episode 3 of Mercedes Masterclass. I know this episode was a little bit different than my past 2 episodes, which talked about kind of like MCAT topics, but I thought this was a fun video to make because it's something a little bit new, and I think a lot of people could benefit from knowledge like this. So if you enjoyed today's video, thanks for watching, and maybe drop me a like. If you have a similar topic you would like me to talk about, maybe you can tell me in the comments. And other than that, hope you guys have a great day. Bye-bye.